Good morning. Now that we finished the play, we're going to circle back to the beginning and do some thinking about why Shakespeare chose this overall structure and what it is he meant us to think about because of that structure. So, if you recall the prologue, we already learned in the prologue every major thing that would happen. That two star-crossed lovers, through their death would bury their parents' strife. So we knew that Romeo and Juliet were going to fall in love. We knew that the love was ill-fated in that they would both die as a consequence of their love. And so he laid all that out in the beginning. And we talked about why he might do that when we started the play. And we talked about the idea that, well, all right, if we know what's going to happen, then we're watching to find out how it happens. We already know what's going to happen, so what makes it happen? What are the causes for this action? And that kind of naturally leads to this question that I'm asking at the end of the play: who is to blame for the death of Romeo and Juliet? So before we can do that, we got to do a little thinking about blame and what it means to be blameworthy. So I have a free write that is for your attendance today, and the directions are there in bullet point number 2. They're also in the slideshow. But before we get into the blaming, I want to think about what does it mean to be blameworthy. So you can attach a doc and write for about 5 minutes on this. It doesn't have to be formal. It's just your thoughts on the subject. And I ask several questions. You don't have to necessarily answer each of these questions, but they can just be used to stimulate your thinking. So, what is the difference between deserving blame for an outcome and merely taking an action that led to an outcome? What makes somebody blameless versus blameworthy? In some sense, every action leads to another. So, by this logic, there are multiple actions taken by individuals in the play that lead to the final outcome, or multiple actions taken by individuals in life that lead to a final outcome in a situation. But there's a difference between being the cause of an outcome and deserving blame for that outcome. So I want you to think about that. And then after you've done some writing on blame, we're going to blame someone. So look in the wanted poster slideshow here. This is just the free write again. So if you need the directions, they're also in the slideshow. But what I want to do today is your assignment for today, and this will be due before next class, is to make a wanted poster for a blameworthy character. So you've seen these old-timey posters that they used in, the Wild West to try and track down criminals. This is one for Billy the Kid here. There's just a generic blank. But I'm going to ask you to make this kind of poster. You can do it in a slide. You could do it in Notability. I really like Notability because it allows you to draw and type text in the same document. I don't know of too many programs that you can do that in, but that's the one I recommend. Slides is nice because you can paste images and you can type in it, but I find it more difficult to do any kind of drawing in slides. Or you could just do this on paper. You could do it on a blank piece of paper and use markers, use colored pencils, and upload a picture. So you're going to make a wanted poster for a blameworthy character in Romeo and Juliet. And you're going to have to think about what is blame, and then you're going to have to really think about what character deserves the biggest share of that blame. So there's a number of things that are going to be included in your wanted poster. Anywhere on the poster, you can choose your character and just do a brainstorm. This can be in a corner of the poster somewhere. I want you to brainstorm all the blameworthy actions or choices that your character made. Anything they did that you think contributed to the tragic outcome, to the death of Romeo and Juliet. And then you're going to focus that down. So once you've done the big brainstorm, highlight or circle the two most important things they did that character did that contributed to the death or the tragic ending. You could choose Romeo or Juliet as well. So it doesn't have to be somebody outside of the couple. And then the the kind of key move here is to go from the character, or go from the blameworthy action to the character trait. What underlying characteristic it led to that character doing that action? So let me give you some examples here. By the way, you're also going to put an image of your character engaged in a blameworthy. That's number 5. So you want to leave space in the center of your poster for that. Create an image of your character engaging in a blameworthy action. You can draw this. You can copy some images in from, use images from the web. But I want it to be creative. So at the top, you're going to make a claim based on the character traits that you've identified in the as part of the blameworthy action. So let me skip ahead here to give you an example of what I'm talking about with the traits. I brainstormed for Benvolio because I didn't leave Benvolio as an option for you guys to choose, and he's perhaps one of the lesser blameworthy characters. But then if you really start to think about it, maybe he is blameworthy. So anyway, I thought of all the things that he did that might have led to the tragic ending. He dismissed the severity of Romeo's depression in the beginning of the play when Romeo was talking to him about Rosaline. He kind of wrote it off. He doesn't really listen to what Romeo's saying to him at the beginning of the play. Benvolio is the one who suggested that Romeo go to the Capulet party. And then when Romeo expresses serious concerns about going to the party based on his foreboding or bad dreams, Benvolio dismisses him and he pushes everyone to get to the party. So those are all the things I thought of that he did. And then I went back and I thought of what are the character traits associated with that? Well, he dismisses the severity of Romeo's depression. Maybe he's imperceptive. So that's the character trait. That's the personality trait. It's an adjective. He doesn't really listen to what Romeo's saying to him. He's dismissive. He suggests they go to the Capulet party. He's careless. He's short-sighted. He should have known the danger that going to that party presented. And then when Romeo's anxious about going to the party, he says, come on, let's go. We're already late. So he's selfish. He's sort of focused only on pleasure. So those are 4 different things and traits that that connect to them. You're going to pick 2 of the actions and determine what trait is represented in that action. So you're going to create a claim. Put that at the top of the poster because the character is wanted for because of his or her trait. So because of Benvolio's selfishness and his lack of perception, so 2 traits, or because of his selfishness and lack of perception, Benvolio is to blame for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet. So I've created a claim using 2 traits that I've pulled from my brainstorm of actions that the character has engaged in that are blameworthy. In the middle of the poster, I create an image. Near the bottom, you're going to select a quote from the text for each chosen character trait that serves as evidence of the trait. So it's 2 quotes total for the poster. So if I chose Benvolio's selfishness and his lack of perception, I want quotes that reveal him to be selfish or lacking in perception. Now, you can choose any of these characters: Romeo, Juliet, the friar, the nurse, Mercutio, the prince, Lord Capulet, Lady Capulet, Tybalt. The only one I'm asking you not to choose is Benvolio because I'm outlining it here in this slideshow. So, imperceptive, selfish. Then here's what you're going to do with the quote. You're going to pick the quote and you're going to give the explanation of the quote. So I picked the quote here: "Be ruled by me, forget to think of her, examine other beauties." This is where Romeo is telling, where Benvolio is telling Romeo to get over Rosaline and go to look at other women. So my explanation for the quote is that Benvolio doesn't recognize the severity of Romeo's affliction over Rosaline. This was to prove that he's imperceptive. He doesn't acknowledge the problem of Romeo's obsession and the possibility that he'll behave the same even if he meets another woman. Instead, he dismisses Romeo's real problem. So proof of imperceptibility, proof of his imperceptiveness or his lack of perception or his dismissiveness. I think either one that would serve. Here's another quote. This wind you talk of blows us from ourselves. Supper is done, and we shall come too late. This was after Romeo expressed concerns about going to the Capulet party. They're on their way, Romeo and all the guys. And Benvolio is selfishly concerned with only having a good time. So he dismisses Romeo's concerns as a mere wind, quote, blowing them off course, in other words. He thinks Romeo is full of hot air. So this is proof of his proof of his selfishness, proof of his focus only on having pleasure or being, going to the party, having a good time. So you're going to choose two quotes that prove your character traits, and you're going to explain why that quote proves the trait. I should put that in the directions. So that's the total of the wanted poster. I wish I had I don't have a one I can show you. But follow these directions. So brainstorm somewhere, choose two traits or choose two actions, pick out the traits that those actions represent. So if Benvolio forces Romeo to go to the party, that's the action. The trait is that Benvolio is selfish or is maybe too focused on his own pleasure. Make the claim at the top. You can follow the pattern here. Because of his lack of perception and his selfish behavior, Benvolio is to blame for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet. I create an image of Benvolio engaged in some sort of blameworthy action. I can draw that image. I could import images from the internet, but I want it to be a creative thing. So don't just copy and paste a single image and say, bam, I'm done. Maybe it's a composite of images that you found. And then near the bottom somewhere is where you're going to put your two quotes, and you're going to explain, like I did here, how that quote proves the character trait that you listed in your claim. Okay, if you have any questions, just go ahead and type a comment